Audio Jungle.
Okay, let's unpack this. When we talk about the Hulk, you probably picture the green giant, driven by rage, a victim of uncontrollable science. But today, we're diving into a far more disturbing version. The first Hulk of the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610.
And that is a crucial distinction we need to make right up front for you. The Ultimate Universe was Marvel's attempt at a darker, more grounded and modern timeline. The rules of power were fundamentally different there. Gamma radiation meant uncontrollable mutation. Usually it just resulted in a monster. But our focus today, Tyrone Cash, he just flips that script entirely.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to dissect the central, unsettling contradiction of this man. How does Professor Leonard Williams, a brilliant British scientist and Bruce Banner's mentor at Cambridge, become Tyrone Cash? A hyper-calculated, genius-level crime lord who operated a global empire while evading S.H.I.E.L.D. for 16 years.
It's not a story about accidental monsterdom. It's a terrifying tale of intentional evil.
Absolutely.
We've compiled the full arc. We're talking his academic origins, the unique chemical nature of his transformation, his ruthless reign across the globe, his force alliance with the Avengers, and his absolutely cold-blooded execution. It's the complete journey of a man who chose power over morality.
So let's begin at the beginning then. The man before the monster. Professor Leonard Williams. He was a British scientist at Cambridge, and like Banner, he carried this deep sense of physical inadequacy.
That internal conflict is really the genesis of the whole character. We know Williams was brilliant, maybe even more brilliant than Banner at the time, but he was physically disabled, he had to rely on crutches, and this intense self-hatred for his own physical form was, well, it was his engine.
It's a tragic parallel, isn't it? Both men felt like outcasts, but where Banner sought some kind of normalcy, Williams sought absolute physical domination.
And the science they were working on wasn't the traditional gamma bomb project. They were trying to replicate the super soldier serum, the very source of Captain America's abilities. And Williams was Banner's primary mentor, teaching him, quote, everything he knows about genetic optimization.
The layers of irony here are just staggering. The man who shaped Banner's scientific mind becomes the very first subject.
Exactly. And the serum was still premature, incredibly volatile. Sources confirm that other test subjects died these horrible deaths, but Williams subjected himself to it anyway. He survived. And in doing so, he became the Ultimate Universe's very first Hulk.
And this leads us to the key distinction, because while he got the strength and the size, the mechanism behind his power ensures he is fundamentally different from the traditional Hulk that Banner eventually becomes.
Oh, completely. If the traditional Hulk is a beast of the id, driven by subconscious rage, Tyrone Cash is the ultimate superego monster. And this is what makes him so much more effective and, frankly, terrifying as a villain. Williams retains his genius-level intellect and complete self-control while transformed. He is Leonard Williams, the sadistic, strategic mastermind, simply using a massive, powerful body.
It's the ultimate control fantasy. And the power mechanism reinforces that control.
Yeah.
It wasn't radiation exposure that triggered some unpredictable mutation. It was a refined chemical process based on that super soldier serum, which Williams later synthesized into a simple, discrete pill.
A dosage system. I mean, think about that. He could ingest one pill and gain the powers of the Hulk for a controlled 24-hour period. This ability to put on his immense power and then just take it off, it highlights his purely utilitarian view of his abilities. It was a weapon he could wield strategically, not a curse he had to suffer.
And when he wielded that power, the results were formidable. We're talking superhuman strength, capable of lifting nearly 100 tons. But it's beyond the brute force. It's the tactical durability that stands out.
Exactly. He possessed superhuman speed, up to 200 miles per hour, plus rapid regenerative healing. But the sources provide this one chilling detail about his physical resilience. S.H.I.E.L.D. eventually confirms they couldn't find a drill strong enough to pierce his skull.
Wow.
He was functionally invulnerable and, because he retained his genius, supremely strategic in combat.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We move from the academic lab to the criminal underworld. After his transformation, Professor Williams killed several people, escaped the university, and consciously allowed the world, including his wife Kate and his son Janie, to believe he was dead.
He literally chose to erase Leonard Williams to pursue a global criminal career as Tyrone Cash. For 16 years, he was a ghost to the authorities and a ruthless reality to the underworld.
And this wasn't just local street crime. He built a true empire. He was described as a ruthless gangster who murdered and pillaged existing gang lords across huge parts of Africa and Asia. He eventually settles down in South America, specifically Argentina, where he consolidates his power, takes over drug cartels, claims their fortunes, their mansions, even their wives. He was operating completely outside the system, ruling a kingdom built on calculated fear.
And a threat like that eventually forces a response. But Nick Fury, realizing Cash's power was just too immense to simply capture, he decided he needed to recruit him. So Fury sent War Machine James Rhodes to Cash's stronghold in South America to negotiate.
And that recruitment attempt perfectly encapsulates the absolute 0 point Cash had reached morally. War Machine tries to appeal to the ghost of Leonard Williams, the man of compassion, by showing Cash a photo of his abandoned wife and son.
Yeah, that gesture failed spectacularly. Cash responded not with emotion, but with immediate, brutal, calculated violence. He attacks War Machine instantly, dismantling this technologically advanced armor and showing just extreme ruthlessness. And here's the shocking detail. He actually plucks a one-man plane, a single-engine plane, right out of the air and uses it as a weapon against Rhodes. He kills the innocent pilot without a second of remorse.
That level of cold self-interest is just... It's breathtaking. War Machine had to retreat for significant repairs, which proved that physical force was just off the table.
Right, so Fury realized the only leverage left was emotional blackmail, the ultimate control. War Machine later blackmailed Cash by threatening to reveal the truth to his family that Leonard Williams was alive and, well, running a criminal empire. That threat, the destruction of the comfortable lie he had built, forced Cash to comply. He agreed to join Fury's Project No, which was basically a Black Ops SHIELD death squad, but only under the strict condition that he never had to step foot on American soil.
So now we have the first Ultimate Hulk, a genius crime boss, blackmailed into serving as a mercenary on an extremely morally gray version of the Avengers. And his first mission was hunting down the Ghost Rider.
And his performance was memorable, even if it was strategically flawed. During the confrontation, the team mistakenly targeted Bobby Blackthorne, who was transformed into a Ghost Rider entity. Cash took down Blackthorne by violently snatching him off his motorcycle and driving him straight into the pumps of a gas station.
That must have been a spectacular scene of destruction.
Oh, it was devastating. Devastating enough to briefly render Cash unconscious, although Blackthorne being a Ghost Rider, he emerged unscathed. But here's the analytical moment. When the Ghost Rider looked into Cash's soul, he didn't just see the gangster facade.
Yeah.
He saw the genius underneath, which confirms, even while he's engaging in this extreme violence, that Professor Williams's intellect was absolutely intact, operating just beneath the physical transformation.
But his cooperation with the Avengers was only ever a forced detour. He never abandoned his villainous ambitions. The sources are really clear on this. Even while working for Fury, Tyrone Cash was the one secretly orchestrating the entire black market sale of S.H.I.E.L.D. super soldier prototypes.
And this betrayal kicks off a massive, multi-character conflict against the Avengers and the New Ultimates. The final confrontation was a deeply personal affair, with Cash going head-to-head with War Machine once more. We learned that their blows were generating such extreme force that the shockwaves could be felt 1,000 miles away.
1,000 miles, that's just an insane scale of power.
It really is.
But despite that sheer destructive force, and the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't even penetrate his skin with drills, he had a crucial vulnerability. His power was artificial, chemical, and time-bound. How did they finally manage to neutralize a villain of this magnitude?
It required a highly specific tactical move that bypassed his physical durability entirely. Blade, who was also part of this Black Ops squad, was able to use hypnosis. He forced Cash into a suggestible state, and once hypnotized, they surgically drained the modified Hulk serum from his body.
Even captured, his mind was still running schemes. He immediately launched into a calculated deception attempt.
He did. He tried to throw the entire investigation off course with a false confession. Cash claimed he was secretly taking orders from Carol Danvers, who he alleged had been selling S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets for years. It was a classic misdirection attempt, designed to sow chaos and delay his own consequences, especially since the true antagonist causing all the trouble was actually Gregory Stark.
The Avengers then escorted him back to his South American lab to get the rest of the Hulk pills. And it's there, surrounded by his enemies, that Williams delivers his final cold twist.
He revealed that the 24-hour effective window of the pill he took for the fight, it had expired 20 minutes earlier. The destructive, invulnerable, powerful Tyrone Cash was gone. All that remained was Leonard Williams, describing himself as simply a crippled old man. He was neutralized, vulnerable, and completely powerless without his chemical crutch.
And in a characteristically ruthless move for the Ultimate Universe, Nick Fury, having secured the remaining Hulk drugs for himself and his operations, he personally executed Leonard Williams right there in the lab. And that brought the story of the first Ultimate Hulk to a definitive clinical close.
It's an ending that reflects the deliberate choices Cash made, but we can't discuss this character without impartially addressing the meta-context and the controversy that surrounded his debut back in 2010.
This is a vital analytical piece, isn't it? Because the character was introduced during a time when comics were consciously trying to introduce more diverse heroes and villains, but the design choices here drew significant criticism from readers.
Absolutely. The sources reflect that readers found the persona problematic. His chosen alias, Tyrone Cash, combined with his whole aesthetic. The global criminal, the ruthless gangster who accumulated immense wealth and women throughout Africa and South America. It was criticized by some as a poorly realized, outdated, and frankly stereotypical depiction of a black character.
It sounds like the intention might have been to create a powerful, intelligent villain, but the execution utilized tropes that many felt were reductive and culturally disconnected, especially for a character debuting in 2010.
That's the tension. Williams was established as this world-class British genius, yet he chose a highly sensationalized, high-profile gangster facade, Tyrone Cash. It really shows how even with the best intentions of creating diversity, subtle character choices, name, motivation, appearance can inadvertently reflect historical biases and lead to critical pushback.
So what does this entire trajectory mean for the legacy of Leonard Williams? He's the brilliant mind who deliberately traded his humanity and morality for controlled, temporary power. He successfully became Tyrone Cash, the global criminal, rather than accepting the tormented, tragic path that Bruce Banner walked.
His story is the ultimate examination of power by choice. He wasn't a victim of accidental science. He maintained his genius, he synthesized his abilities to be disposable, and he chose pure ruthlessness every single day for 16 years. He used his powers as a tool for financial and physical domination, completely separate from any accidental emotional trigger.
The traditional Hulk turns green when Banner loses control. Tyrone Cash, the Black Hulk, transformed only when he was fully in control and wanted to become a monster. It's that controlled willingness to embrace pure villainy that defines him.
And that raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over. What does it truly say about the nature of power when a brilliant mind actively seeks out and embraces pure villainy, making his own super abilities merely a temporary chemically activated tool for ruthlessness? Was his original physical limitation the reason for his actions, or was it simply the final calculated excuse for the evil he had clearly stored away all along? Think about the difference between a tragic victim and a calculated monster the next time you hear a reference to the Ultimates.